Tonight, President Biden is warning Israel that without immediate action to protect civilians in its war against Hamas, U.S. policy towards its staunch ally will change. The direct message coming during a phone call between the president and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
The president emphasized that the strikes on humanitarian workers and the overall humanitarian situation are unacceptable.
The 30-minute call was the first between the two leaders in nearly 3 weeks and marks a much tougher tone towards Israel. The White House says the president made clear the need for Israel to announce and implement a series of specific, concrete, and measurable steps to address civilian harm, humanitarian suffering, and the safety of aid workers. The White House has repeatedly said Israel faces a genocidal threat from Hamas, just this week saying there will be no change in policy. But two U.S. officials tell NBC News the president today strongly implied he may condition American military aid to Israel on whether Netanyahu makes immediate changes over humanitarian concerns in Gaza, including getting to a ceasefire. The White House saying changes must happen in days or even hours. Do you think the Prime Minister is really listening?
I think it was evident in the phone call today. It was a good discussion, direct, no question, but a good discussion.
Today's call was arranged in direct response to the Israeli strike that killed 7 World Central Kitchen workers, including 33-year-old Jacob Flickinger, a dual American-Canadian citizen. NBC's Ralph Sanchez spoke with his parents.
We are two people who suffered because we've lost our only son, but we're only two. There are thousands and thousands.
Israel says the strike was a grave mistake and was not intentional. Late today, the U.S. said Israel had agreed to open 3 new humanitarian aid corridors into Gaza, including one that would allow in trucks from nearby Jordan.
Gabe, let's turn back to that military aid. The U.S. is still supplying arms to Israel.
Yes, Lester, just days ago, the Biden administration signed off on sending Israel more than 1,800 bombs and is pressing Congress to approve selling Israel more F-15 fighter jets. The White House says that was already in the works and is unrelated to this war. Lester?
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.